So the message of life to the body in every human being, I am come not to judge, but to love. And it turns out that life is actually the master in your body, and its nature is unconditional, empowering love. And so if you want to feel loved, you got to sit still, got to close your eyes, got to bring your focus from wherever it is out in the world or in your head. You bring it into your body. Usually you do it through breathing, because when you breathe, you focus on breathing. Your focus goes inside. And when you get connected inside, you feel unconditionally loved. And then it's not about you anymore.
Welcome back, you guys, to another episode of the Beyond the Scale podcast. I'm your host, Mary Katherine, and today's guest is Udo Erasmus. He's the founder of Udo's Choice and author of the book, Fats That Heal and Fats That Kill, which has sold over 250,000 copies. As an acclaimed author and speaker, Udo has an 8-step process that takes into consideration all of the elements of nature and human nature, including physical health, mental health, presence and awareness, life energy, and being in harmony with nature and humanity. Udo's background includes studies in biochemistry, genetics, biology, and nutrition, as well as a master's degree in counseling psychology. So welcome to the show, Udo. I'm so happy that you're here.
Glad to be on. It should be fun.
Awesome. Well, first I want to start with just a little bit of your background. Many years ago, how you got started to find this health-focused lifestyle and mission that you're on now.
Okay. I had the good fortune to be born during the Second World War, 1942. So I'm 82. So we were living in Poland, and we had to, when the war ended, everybody's running to get the hell out of there. And we were being chased by the communists in tanks and trucks, down dirt roads, no military presence, women with young children in horse-drawn hay wagons, like from farm country. And the Allies, which we like to think of as the good guys, they were using us as target practice, shooting at us from planes. And so my mother had to get off the road. It was winter, so the fields were covered in snow. She had to get off the road because there were dead people and dead horses in the ditches. And she felt it was safer to be walking through the fields than to be on the roads because they were being shot at. And so she had 6 kids with her, so she could only take 2 along. So she had to leave 4 kids behind. I mean, imagine a mother having to make a decision like that. I got left behind. I ended up in an orphanage for a while. So I basically got to be a war baby and a refugee and an orphan in very quick succession when I was 2 years old.
Wow.
And I don't remember so much about it other than I never felt safe. So I became very shy, like this, very shy. Didn't know what I could trust because every day what we were told changed because of the crazy situation. And I became a born scientist. So I was always, because I felt insecure, I was always trying to figure out how things worked. Because when you know how things work, you get a certain amount of security from it because you could predict and control. That was my predict and control, right? Mm-hmm. And then I listened to people argue, adults argue. When I was 6-year-old, another one of these intense arguments that adults have about stupid things. And I was listening to it, and it made me feel really uneasy. And it didn't seem like this is so trivial. Why are they arguing about it? Why does it even matter? And this thought came to me, there must be a way that people can live in harmony. In a little cocky voice, I'm going to find out how. 6 years old, don't know how complicated everything is. And that's been my driver all my life. So when it came to studying, I wanted to know everything about everything. And I got into science. I loved literature, but I thought science was more practical. So I got into physics and math and chemistry, and then that was too technical, too theoretical. Then I got into biological sciences. And you have to be kind of dead if you're living on a planet that is, covered with life and unbelievably amazing. And you have to be kind of not all there to not be fascinated by living things. So I wanted to know what life is. So I studied biology, biochemistry. Then I took psychology because I wanted to know how thinking works. And so I did that as well. Then I got into medicine because I wanted to know what health is. They call it healthcare, right? So I wanted to know what health is. And I only learned about disease And I went to the dean and I said, what is health? I came here to study health. He says, we don't know. We're working on it. But they're not working on it because they're always focused on disease. They're never focused on health. You want to know health, you need to study healthy creatures. So I went back into biochemistry and genetics because there you're studying normal functions of normal creatures in normal situations. And you learn more about health in biology and biochemistry than you do in medicine.
Yeah.
Because it's medicine.
That's really, it's a really, I just wanted to stop you for a second. That's a very interesting point because we often hear that we have a sick care culture, not a health care culture in which we are more focused on putting a Band-Aid on symptoms and prescribing a pill and not getting to the root cause of what's causing the symptom. But even going further than that is preventing it in the first place. You're not hearing about that as much. That's a very interesting point. And
going one step behind prevention, because prevention is still about disease.
Right.
You're trying to prevent heart attacks. You're trying to prevent stroke. You're trying to prevent cancer. What about just one more step further and chasing health? But then you have to know what health is. My idea was if I knew what health is, anybody who had departed from health in some direction, I should be able to take him, turn him around in the direction of health, give him a push, and watch him get better. But I'd have to know in what direction to push him. And for that, I would have to know what health is. So anyway, that didn't work. In biology, we didn't study life. Biology is the study of life. We didn't study life in biology. We studied form and function. I always thought we were going to have a beaker of life and it was going to be shining and liquid and we'd see, wow, there's life, right? Didn't get that. In psychology, we didn't study soul. Psychology means study of soul. We studied beliefs, emotions, thoughts, no soul. And I thought life and soul and health, those are like the good stuff. Because the war was bad, it's got to be better than this. But why don't we aim for the good stuff? So I've been always preoccupied with that. And eventually, I actually got to the good stuff. This is like crazy. It just occurred to me recently. The Buddha and Krishna and Christ and maybe Socrates and some of the philosophers, they were actually teachers of life, to the extent that they could be in the times that they lived in. They were teaching people how to live. So they taught about peace. They taught about love. They taught about presence. They taught about simple eating, right? They actually were the teachers of health. We don't have teachers of health in our university system. It's like, wow, that's really interesting. Yeah. And so when I left university, because I wasn't finding what I was looking for, I went that route. I did some psychedelics. That was very helpful because they kind of melted the door off my very shy war kid personality and said, oh my God, there's 1,000 ways to live. And it opened up options, the possibility of options. I never saw that before. And I actually laughed. And I was rolling on the floor, laughing and crying at the same time. Because it struck me as the funniest thing that everything I had been so studiously looking for on the outside was all already on the inside. And I was looking outside for what can only be found inside. Like, that struck me as the funniest thing. And that kind of broke open the door to this whole other area. Then I got into the teachings of the masters. And then I got in with a group that I thought were students of the masters, and we would all get together and we would share our stories and we would all leave the evening enriched. But that's not what happened. They judged me very harshly, told me that I was from the devil and to get out. And then I got really confused because I came in it with like very innocently, and sometimes when your heart's really open, somebody puts a boot in it, it's like really hurts. So I got really desperate. I really wanted to know. I hitchhiked out into nature because that's where I used to go to clear my head. And in the middle of the night, I woke bolt upright from dead asleep. There was this being made of light just there in the middle of the night on a deserted beach, right? Didn't say anything, wasn't any label. So it was like, what is this? But it embodied a message. And I always wanted to know, what did the master feel? Where that wisdom came from, where that poetry came from, where that love and generosity came from. I wanted to feel that. I didn't know how to do that. I didn't know where to even start, but that's what I wanted. So this being embodied a message, and the message wasn't in words, but I could put words to it. It said, I am come not to judge, but to love. I am come not to judge, but to love. I don't know if there's a more concise way to express the message of the masters. I am come not to judge, but to love. But later on, I tried to figure out who was that. And I was like, well, I was doing a Jesus thing, so maybe was that Jesus? Or was that soul? Or was that spirit? Or was that life? And I came to the conclusion that they're actually all the same. They're just different words for the same thing. Essence of life. So there's life. And I realized later, the message of the masters to humanity was, I am come not to judge, but to love. But that's also the message of life to your body.
Love that.
Life loves your body unconditionally, 24/7, lifelong. Never beats you up, never lies to you, never takes a weekend off, never asks for a raise, never charges anything, right? And makes sure everything works. It's omnipresent in your body. It's omniscient, all-knowing in your body, knows how to run a body. A little bit of help you got to give is like what you put in your mouth, and maybe a little bit how much you move so that you build a body that can move, right? But life takes care of everything else. Builds the muscles, builds the bones, does the repair, makes sure that every cell in the body gets the nutrients that go in my mouth. But after I swallow, I'm no longer in charge. Life is in charge. And so the message of life to the body in every human being, I am come not to judge, but to love. And it turns out that life is actually the master in your body. And its nature is unconditional, empowering love. And so if you want to feel loved, you got to sit still, got to close your eyes, got to bring your focus from wherever it is out in the world or in your head. You bring it into your body. Usually you do it through breathing, because when you breathe, you focus on breathing. Your focus goes inside. And when you get connected inside, you feel unconditionally loved. And then it's not about you anymore. Then it's not just, okay, what can I do to get myself taken care of? No, I'm taken care of. Now it's like, okay, well, where can I help? What needs to be done? How can I make the biggest splash for good in the time that I have? So it completely changes the orientation. Before that, it was always, I wouldn't do things that needed to be done because I couldn't see how they would take care of me. So there's a selfishness to every action until we feel cared for. And when we feel cared for, that selfishness drops because it's not about us anymore at that point. It's very cool.
I really love that. And it reminded me of a saying I saw at the gym the other day at FitBody. Many times our coaches will write motivational sayings and quotes on the whiteboards. And it said, your body is working for you, not against you. And a lot of times we blame our bodies for so many things that like they're actually doing for us that are good. So what I thought of is, on occasion, maybe you have a headache and you're thinking, oh, why do I have a headache? Why is my body doing this? And usually it's your headache is actually telling you that there's something wrong. So maybe you're really stressed, or you've been looking at your computer all day, or you didn't get enough sleep, or you're dehydrated. It's like your body, sure, it feels like it's working against you, but it's actually working for you because it's telling you, hey, you need to slow down. Like you said, close your eyes, take a deep breath, drink some water. Take care of your body. It's working for you.
Yeah. In fact, pain is a gift, because if pain didn't get your attention to say something needs to be done here, something needs to change,
right?
Then you would run into things and you wouldn't notice, and you would actually kill yourself because pain was not telling you when to stop. So pain is a huge gift. The thing that I think the issue we have with pain is that when you have a pain, you don't know what the problem is. You know there's a problem, but then you have to figure out what is the problem. Because I wake up with a headache sometimes. It's because I sleep with my neck cricked.
Yeah.
Right? And then I get up and I move around, and the headache goes away. Could be anything. Right. Could be, like you say, dehydration, or it could be just like worry, So, but the headache is telling you something. Something needs to be changed here. Figure out what it is, make the change, and the headache will go away. Pretty amazing. So now, beyond life, there's something even deeper than life. And in that place, that's called pure awareness. And that the nature of that pure awareness is complete peace, contentment, calmness, equanimity, tranquility.
That's something I need to find. That's something a lot of our listeners need.
Yeah, within every human being. That exists all the time. And the nature of that peace is that it can never become unpeaceful. It doesn't change. So if you're going crazy in your head because too many things are going on and you want to control everything that changes, which you can't, right? Because what changes will change. You're not the controller, right? So you want to control it. And at the same time that you're driving yourself crazy, trying to control things you can't control, there's something in you that is in complete peace, no matter how many changes are going on the outside, and no matter what the nature of those changes is. So here you are as a human being. Your foundation within which you develop is peace. And that peace, when you find it in the core of your being, again, that requires a stillness practice. You have to sit with yourself. How else will you get to know the beauty of your own existence if you never take time to focus on it, in it, right? It's the only way to do it. So you do stillness practice. You go to the core of your being. You feel that peace. And you notice that peace is not limited to your body. That peace actually goes, you're a center focus of that peace. So is every other point in space. And from there, that peace goes out to infinity. Oh my God. And then you start, if you feel it here, you start looking around. Oh yeah, I see the leaves on the trees flapping in the breeze. But the space in which it happens and the space around the tree is all completely peaceful. It's like space, right? Space is not affected by an explosion that takes place in it. That doesn't change the space. Space is space, right? It's just it's the container in which everything happens. So if you can find that in yourself, now you actually have freedom and choice. Because from that place where nothing is happening, you could go in any direction. Whatever it is you want to do, there's no limit to it. There's nothing that limits you. In peace, there is no limit. Because peace is like the source of all possibility. And then within that peace is your love. And that love, when you're connected to it, it shines out into the world. I call that inspired purpose. And that's literally the bridge between your heart and the world and the good intent or the positive intent or the positive mind of doing what you can to help people have better quality of life. And that, that could take 1,000 forms. It depends on what your talent is and what your experience is and what your interests are. So that's the three things that are inside of us that hardly anybody ever looks at. No government talks about it. Religion completely messes it up. The law is not made with that in mind. What you do in your education, nobody talks about it, And that's because we're really trained to be factory workers, not free human beings. And yet there's so much wisdom and such magnificence inside of every human being. And by the way, if I said to you, hey, Mary, whose body is that? What would you say to me?
My body.
Yeah. And that's what most people would say. Well, it's my body. You know what you just did? You just told me you're not the body. You just told me you're the owner of the body. You just told me your body is your property. So then my question is, well, if you're the owner of the body, who are you as owner of the body? And most people would say, well, I don't really know.
Yeah.
Right? So here you are, the owner of the body, and you don't have a clue about who you are. So can I tell you?
Yeah. Life
owns the body. And in your individual essence, you are life, that unconditional, empowering love. And by the way, that life, what is that life? Where does that life come from? Oh, that comes from the sun. See, because the sun, you look at the planet, and everything on the planet that's alive is fed by sunshine. Right? If you covered sunshine, and when there's been dark winters because of smoke or dust or whatever, most things die. So the sun shines in all directions. It's 15 million degrees Celsius. That's how hot the sun is, right? And so some of that sunshine hits the earth during the daytime. And so that sunshine or that solar energy is filtered through 93 million miles of space. Then it's filtered through Earth's atmosphere. Then it's filtered into plants, mostly green plants. And that solar energy fraction that remains excites electrons that then bond atoms together to make molecules. And that solar energy is stored in those bonds. You eat them as food. And then in your cells, those bonds are broken. That solar energy is released. And that solar energy fraction that is released in your cells is what life is. So you actually are a solar gadget. So if somebody calls you sunshine, they're actually right on. They're actually telling you who you really are. Okay? So, but when they say you are my sunshine, that's not true. You are your sunshine and I am my sunshine.
I'll have to tell my daughter that. I always call her my sunshine and sing "You Are My Sunshine."
Yeah. The thing, she comes through you, but she comes for life, not for you.
Yeah.
So you
I
get to
love, yeah.
bring her in, but she doesn't belong to you. She belongs to
Yeah.
life.
I love your perspective on just like energy and life running through us and your choice to, I guess, live this life of vibrance is pretty much like
Yeah.
what I hear as you're speaking about it. What would be your recommendation for someone who feels like they allow everything that's outside of their control, as you mentioned, to control their life? What would you say would be like your first step towards channeling that inner peace, that calmness, and getting still with yourself and your body?
Great question. Feel the pain of your lack of control. Feel the pain of whatever it is that comes at you that upsets you. I call it heartache. You know, everybody knows what heartache is. I've never met someone who doesn't know what heartache is. Uncomfortable, uneasy feeling in your chest. And there are 1,000 things that trigger it. So maybe you have a boyfriend and he dumps you unceremoniously, your heart aches, right? And if it's a girlfriend and she dumped me, my heart aches, right? Everybody's experienced something like that. Or your grandma dies and you were close to her, heartache. Or your dog runs away and you wanted the dog to stay, heartache. Or something happened that you didn't want to happen, heartache. Or somebody promised to do something and they didn't do it, heartache. Right? So there are lots of triggers for heartache, but the heartache is not the cause. Sorry, the trigger is not the cause of the heartache. The trigger is a reminder. The heartache, the cause of the heartache is your disconnection from yourself. And how does that happen? Well, when you're in your mother's womb, there was nothing to do. There was no place to go. Everything was taken care of through the umbilical cord, and you're pretty safe. And you didn't have any words, and you had no culture, and you had no religion, and you didn't know that there was a mother around you, and you didn't know that there was a whole world around the mother. You didn't know any of it. You didn't even have to breathe. So you're hanging out, you're floating in I call it the Buddha tank, right? Floating in this tank of water, not much to taste, not much to see, not much to hear, maybe feeling, maybe there's some feeling because the feeling is within you, right? And you're just hanging out. So where's your focus? Your focus, because it had no place to go, is at rest, inside, in its source, in life, and a little deeper than that in peace, in awareness. And you hung out there for 9 months. It was the boringest place you could imagine, and you weren't bored. You were actually in light. You were actually in bliss. You were like a yogi in deep meditation. And the whole point of what yoga and all those stillness practices is to get back into that state, because that's the state of heaven on earth, paradise, right? Because everything's taken care of. You want to feel that, you have to start with the heart. Okay, so then you got born, everything changed. You got kicked out, and now you had to get to know the world, because now you had to sing for your breast milk, and sing for your blanket, and sing for your comforts, cry really, right? And you had to get to know the world, because now you had to learn to meet the physical needs that you have. And in that process, your focus went from being present inside and absent outside to more and more drawn through your senses outward into the world of surfaces. More and more, you ended up present outside with your focus and absent inside. And the disconnection of your focus from inside is where heartache began. So then you try to deal with the heartache by what you do on the outside. Find the perfect guy, find the perfect job, find the perfect situation. And you're trying to, and the hope is always in what you go out to do, is that when you succeed, you will feel whole again. You will feel good again. You will feel, relief, right? And it never happens, because if you get that, you get 3 days when you say, I did it. And on day 4, it's like, that didn't do it. Mm-hmm. And then you look again, maybe something else, maybe something. What heartache is it's caused by your disconnection from yourself. And like pain, like any pain, it is your call to do what needs to be done to deal with it. And what needs to be done is you need to bring your focus of awareness back inside as deep as you can into the space your body occupies, and discover yourself in that space. And you will literally, if you sit still and you go, you close your eyes, you cut out all your distractions, Maybe sit in a dark room or something. Close your eyes, and if you go deep enough, you will see light in your darkness, and you will hear sound in your silence, and you will feel love in your emptiness, and you will even taste sweetness in the blandness of your mouth. Those are, and those are, by the way, senses monitor energy. So when you externalize them, they monitor energy outside, light, color, brightness, sound, rhythm, and the silence, noise changes, right? So you're monitoring energy on the outside. But when you sit down and become still, you can monitor the energy on the inside, and you get to know yourself as the energy that is life, that in your individual essence you are. And there is no other way to, and there is no other way. There's no other way to get there, because where you are, you have to put your focus to where you are to find out who you are, what you are, right?
Yeah.
There's no way around it. And then the people who do that, those were the masters. Those were the people who came with wisdom about living, that lived their life simply, because you don't need all of that. You don't need everything. You can let everything on the outside be what it is. You don't have to own it all, right? And then when you feel whole, again, what's your life going to be? It's going to be a life of service, right? And not the way politicians talk about it, and then make their backroom deals. This is for real. This is for real. This is like personal with integrity.
I love this so much. I love, just bringing that focus and awareness, like being still with your body. Something that I thought of as you were explaining that is pain receptors, and how a lot of our clients in the gym are dealing with pain, and any types of pain. It could be, disease, fibromyalgia, chronic hip pain, back pain, or it could be cancer. Do you feel that this mindfulness practice that you do, and bringing the awareness to your body and taking control of your thoughts and your body, can numb pain receptors or help with pain? Have you ever had any situations like that?
Well, there's a couple of ways to deal with pain. One is to ignore it, right? One is to try and ignore it.
Right.
But if the pain needs
Which
to
is
get
hard.
your attention, it'll just become bigger because it needs to get your attention. One is to get attention. One is to go into the pain and be fully present in the pain. And one is to put the pain in perspective. So you say about, okay, your back hurts, right? So you got it hurt. Let's say it's in the small of your back. That's where people have a lot of pain, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, but there's no pain in your kneecap, and there's no pain in the bottom of your feet, and there's no pain on your bum on the chair, and there's no pain in your shoulders, and no pain in your head, there's no pain in your neck. Okay, now see the pain in your back in the perspective of feeling your entire body. Oh, that pain is not that big, right? But what we do, and we don't go into it and accept it either and become the pain. What we do is we feel a little bit of pain, we put all our focus there, and we say, I hate this pain, I want it to be gone away, and I don't want to do anything to make it go away. I want it to go away without me doing anything. Well, that's not how it works, right?
Yeah.
That's not how it works, right? But you can put it in perspective, and that helps. And you can go really into it, and you can figure out, okay, this pain is my friend. It's trying to tell me something. Maybe I need to do, I've noticed I get back pain in my lower back when my abs are not strong enough because I haven't done enough sit-ups. And then the inside muscles on in the front of my backbone, right, they get weak, and then they don't hold my spine in place. Okay, so there's a solution to one kind of back pain, if that's what it's from, right? And then the other thing is that, some of our pain is mental. And when you're able to get out of your mind, out of your thinking, and into the beauty of your own existence, the peace and the love that are in your existence, all of a sudden you're not thinking. All of a sudden say, wow, oh my God, I'm so fortunate. Oh my God, what a gift. I'm alive. Wow, how cool is that? Right? So that pain, that kind of pain will go away just by shifting the focus. But the physical pain that comes from a structural defect or an injury, that needs a different kind of attention. However, no matter what pain you have or where it comes from, when you can also feel the peace in which there is no pain, and the unconditional love in which there is no pain. Pain is not possible in those places. You can have some pain and it becomes manageable because that's not all you've got. Because you've got so much more that you can also be focused on. And if you can feel pain and feel peace at the same time, because you are doing that stillness practice and are learning how to do that better, then you don't have to be complaining all the time.
Yeah.
You say, okay. And maybe if you're old and you have things that are gradually, your body's gradually deteriorating. So you'll have a little pain, you'll have pain, you'll have more pain. But there's a lot more peace in you than pain could ever be.
Right.
And the issue is about the practice, is about the discipline to take the time to be in stillness and to experience what is in that stillness, because there's nothing but good in that stillness. Nothing but beautiful in that stuff.
Yeah. Well, thank you for touching on that. We have many clients in the gym that we see very frequently who they'll come and they'll start doing really well and they'll start taking care of their body and they'll focus on their nutrition as well. And then something will happen, or they'll get a tweak in their back, or, life happens, and they'll use that as their excuse and they'll put so much focus on it. And I see it too many times, and it's very sad when I have someone who has been showing progress and they have been feeling better, and they'll have an injury as a setback, and they just put so much focus on that setback versus, okay, what can we still do to try to heal our body in this time where maybe they are going to therapy and they are going to get better with time, but instead they say, I'm just going to stop working out. I'm going to stop focusing on my physical health and my mental health, and I'm going to wait until I'm better. And I hate it when that happens.
Yeah, part of what happens is, if we live in a social system, and this is pretty much worldwide, where problems get attention. And not only do they get attention, so you get sympathy, and then less is expected of you, and so you get to be a little lazier, and every pain becomes an excuse, right? And that's kind of like survival mode living. Mm-hmm. But when you go to the place where the love and the peace are, that's where thriving comes from. Mm-hmm. So you're here on this planet. You had a birth, and you're going to have a death. That's a given. And maybe it's 100 years. And before that, for billions of years, you didn't exist. And after that, for billions of years, you won't exist. So you have this time now. It's time limited, right? The body is a terminal condition. Doesn't matter at what point you're looking at it, the body by nature is a terminal condition, right? And so you can live in survival mode until you check out, or you could thrive until you check out. Which the one is the better way to go? Oh yeah, you know what? I know I'm going to check out, but I would like to thrive while I'm here, right? And so if I want to thrive, then pain is no longer an excuse, right? Or some little thing that somebody did to me is no longer an excuse. Somebody said something that wasn't very nice to me. It's not an excuse anymore, because it's not even true. If somebody told me I was no good, well, from life's perspective and from peace's perspective and from inspiration's perspective, it's not even in the realm of possibility, right? Life is good. There's never, ever been anything wrong with life. We've been disconnected from life and come up with all kinds of crazy stuff, but there's never, ever been anything wrong with life. Yeah. And you are life in your individual essence. So to me, I guess because I came out of the war, so that's about as low as it gets. So for me, it was like I was born at the bottom of the barrel and everything was up. But it made me realize, that we could live so much better than we do. And so for me, it's always been, how can we live better? How can people live better? What do I need to do to live better? And that's what drove all of my questions about what is life and what is soul and what is peace. And, I was in the peace movement for a while in the 60s, right? And I realized the peace movement was actually just an anti-war movement. We weren't focusing on peace. Peace to us meant absence of war. Well, that's not peace. Peace is a presence. And when that presence goes, then you drift towards war. And when people don't cultivate peace in their lifetime, they are drifting towards war. And you can see the whole world is going that way. And between the First and Second World War, they went that way. First World War ended in 1918. And if they had said, okay, we had a war, we don't ever want to have a war, let's practice peace so we won't have a war. If they had done that for 21 years, there would have not been a Second World War. But they didn't. They were happy the war was over, and then they did all the stupid things that led to the First World War between the First and the Second World War. And then they had another one. Right?
Yeah.
And I was born into that, and I don't know what it was that made me think, man, there must be a better way to live, But the fact that thought occurred to me, and then it was like, oh yeah, that really makes sense. And that's basically my whole life is about that. We could live better than we do. Every one of the 8 billion people, including me, we could live better than we do. And what would it take to live better? And it essentially comes back to be more within yourself. Be more present to what's already within you. Because all the good stuff that you want to thrive is already in you.
Yeah.
You came loaded with it, right? But then you drifted away from it. Then you got into the world of reactions. And then you're always fighting something. There's something, trying to control something, trying to fight something. Taking your sense of yourself from what everybody on the outside says. Why don't you talk to life about who you are? Why don't you talk to peace? Why don't you talk to whatever it is that creates human beings? Why don't you ask that? Well, who would I be in my best iteration? Right? What is possible for me? And if peace, if you know that absence of war is not peace, because people hate each other just as much when the shooting stops as they did before. So that's not really peace. If you know that, then ask yourself, well, what actually is peace? What is the nature of peace? And what is the nature of peace within me? And how can I get in touch with that nature within me? Stillness practice, time alone, voluntary time alone, voluntary solitude.
We all need more voluntary solitude.
Bringing focus home.
As a mom of 2 little children, I voluntarily would put myself in some solitude many times a day if I could. And I know that many of our listeners feel the same.
But you can, even if you're on the toilet.
No.
Right? Oh, so right? Because if you're on the toilet waiting for a physiological process to take place, you could see how fully present could you be in your body.
Yeah.
Quietly.
I really love that.
How quietly and how lightly can you breathe? You could even close your eyes because you don't have to be, close your eyes.
Right.
How still can I become? How deep can I go into that stillness? How long can I stay there? How lightly and evenly and slowly can I breathe? So not like no pushing, no pulling. And what do I discover in that space?
Yeah.
If you did that for 5 minutes when you're on the can every day, probably in a year, you would have noticed quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah. That's incredible.
And a cool thing for that too is that you as a parent, if you model that for your kids, you might even say to them, mommy's going to take 15 minutes just to be quiet by herself. And you make that part of the discipline that you practice.
Mm-hmm.
You introduce them to something as a possibility of practice, but you also introduce them to the better you that shows up at the end of that practice, when you feel more settled and more calm and more present and less agitated and less 1,000 things going on in your mind.
Yeah.
And if you don't do that, then you kind of deprive them of that, and it makes it harder for them to find their way to it.
Well, I agree with that, because I know that today, if I was to say, I'm going to go take 15 minutes for myself, and I know many people listening to this can relate, usually that is me laying there scrolling my phone or on my computer, or I'm on the phone with someone, multitasking. Yes. It's never, I'm going to actually take 15 minutes for myself and be with myself and have no distractions. And I do agree with you. If we can model that for our children, it would change the world, because I even read an article yesterday about how our children don't know how to ride in the car and be bored, and they don't. I mean, I experienced that firsthand when we just went to the beach and they had to be in the car for 7 hours. It's like they want the iPad or the phone, and they need a snack and a coloring book. And sometimes they want all three at the same time.
Yeah.
No one knows how to be still and be with themselves.
And then you serve that, because you know what? Boredom is the mother of creation.
Yes.
If you let your kids be bored, they will become creative.
Right.
When we were kids, we didn't have all those gadgets, and boredom was if you're bored, you say, great, enjoy your boredom. What you going to do with your boredom, right? And being on the gadgets, that's not the right kind of meditation.
No,
right?
Not at all. Not at all. Well, Udo, this has been so wonderful. Before we go, though, I want to ask really quickly about, you have a whole line of supplements, Udo's Choice. Can you tell our listeners a little bit about that and where they can find more about that?
We should probably take an hour to talk about that, because
yes, definitely.
It's a story. Yeah. So I work with oils that are made with health in mind. Right now everybody's saying, don't use seed oils, don't use omega-6s because they're bad, 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 bad. Those people haven't done all their homework. They're pointing something out, and we did that 40 years ago. And we said we made the alternative. And it's called making oils with health rather than shelf life in mind. And when oils are made with health in mind, they are essential for health, and they are high energy, and they're really good for health. And omega-6 and omega-3 are essential, which means you can't make them, but you have to have them. You have to bring them in from outside. If you don't get enough, you lose your health, and if you don't get enough long enough, you die. And if you bring back enough before you die, then life reverses all the problems that come from not getting enough. Both are essential, but when they're damaged, they become toxic. And so we want to go into that story. And then I work with digestion as well. That's the second most neglected area of health. Oils is number 2, and sugar is probably somewhere between the second or the third, right? And then let's do that. Let's do that as a whole standalone, because there's a lot to it. And
that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
Where can more people learn about you, your amazing work, purchase your book? Where can they find you?
Fats That Heal, Fats That Kill is, you can get that on Amazon. I have a I'm in a lot of places, actually. I have a YouTube channel, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. I have a website for the products at udoschoice.com, udoschoice.com. And I have another website called udoerasmus.com. That's where all the other stuff, that's a work in progress. There's a lot of work that needs to be done on it. And I'm not a techie, so I don't do the work myself. And so I'm not hard to find. If you go on Google and you write in Udo Erasmus, I'm on the first page, because a name that unusual goes high on the So you'll find me on the first page, Udo Erasmus.
Well, Udo, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing all your expertise with our listeners. I feel a sense of calmness just having this conversation with you. So I so appreciate everything that you've shared. And I hope that everyone listens to this episode and starts taking that time for themselves, even if it's just on the toilet, as you mentioned, or in the car, or just at the end of the night after you put everyone to bed.
If you're in a lineup in a checkout in the grocery store,
right?
You're there anyway. You still got to breathe, so you could just follow your breathing. Gently follow your breathing. You're standing there. You could be fully present in the space your body occupies the whole time. Usually what we do is we're in the dry up. Oh, come on, that was hard. You should go. Come on, hurry up. Why? I got to get home. Right? So we're doing all that in our head, right? And at the same time, we could be thinking, finally a lineup. I get some time for myself. What a gift the lineup is if you use it that way.
Yeah, I have a totally different outlook now on waiting for things, because I'm even thinking too, as you mentioned, that when I'm in a line or carpool line, waiting in the waiting room for an appointment, I'm on my phone, I'm
In the
scrolling,
bank.
or everyone does that, but we could be using that time to recharge. We could be using that time to take a few deep breaths, close your eyes. Nobody cares. No one's
Yeah.
watching you.
Yeah,
And just take that
it's almost
time.
like the universe is conspiring to give you that time.
Yeah.
But then you got to remember that
Right.
that's what it's
Remember
for.
how to use it. That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so
Okay.
much, Udo. This has been wonderful. And thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in for another episode of the Beyond the Skill podcast. Please make sure to check us out on our YouTube channel, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and share this episode with all of your friends. Until next time, thanks so much.